Hi, I'm Rita Wilkins, also known as the Downsizing Designer. So tonight I want to talk about something that a lot of people are thinking about, and that is downsizing in your 60s during retirement or before retirement. So if you are in your late 50s or in your early 60s, chances are that you've been having conversations about whether you should or shouldn't downsize from your big home or not. And you've probably had conversations with family and friends who might have already downsized, so you can actually learn from them. And if they're honest, they'll give you, both the good side and the bad side, the pros and cons, or the, kind of the good, bad, and ugly of what downsizing can be. But downsizing is really a big deal because it's life-changing and one size does not fit all. So if you're considering downsizing, moving to a smaller home than you are currently living in, before you jump in, it's important to weigh the pros and the cons of each to see if it's the right decision for you. So tonight's Facebook Live is intended specifically for those of you who are at least in that discernment process. You're just wondering, should we or shouldn't we downsize? And I want to provide you with a few new tools that will help you with that decision-making process. So if you're downsizing, it's a little bit of a checklist. So this might help you decide. So number one, what do you want why do you want to downsize? Or why do you have to downsize? Two different questions. So if you are at that phase of your life where you just want change, maybe you're an empty nester, you have those extra bedrooms, a lot of wasted space, and it just makes sense financially to downsize. But you're also thinking of it as an opportunity to have time for you, for this time of your life, to have more fun, more experiences, maybe be near your grandchildren. So each one of those is part of a decision about lifestyle, where, what do you want in that, or why would you want to move? So then a second reason why people want or need to move is financial issues. So God knows, we all go through ups and downs in our financial life. And when money becomes a concern, when the big house, the rising costs of maintenance, taxes, upkeep, and when you're starting to feel like I really can't afford this house any longer and you're starting to worry you, that would be a reason to want to or have to downsize. And then a third reason is certainly aging. So as we get older, the bigger house doesn't always serve us as well as it might have at one point. Whether it's aging concerns because of health or safety concerns. In aging, we might be anticipating the need for one-floor living, no more stairs, or health issues. If you already have health issues, knees or hips or whatever, you might have to have a space that is suited more for handicap accessible. So the second question to ask yourself is, what kind of lifestyle do you want? What do you most value? What's most important to you? And where do you want to live? What kind of house? So it's kind of a lot of questions in one, but it all is essentially the same thing. What kind of lifestyle do you want? So do you want to stay in the same area? Do you want to move to a beach cottage, live in the city in a condo, and have the ability to kind of lock and leave so you have less responsibility and more freedom than you do right now in the big house? Maybe you want to travel more. So each one of these has to do with lifestyle and why you would want to move and where you want to move. So some of the pros of downsizing, these are benefits. So downsizing certainly has its advantages, and as most of you know that follow me, I downsized and it changed my life much, much for the better. So there are just a few, these are just a few of the benefits that many boomers experience after they've moved to a smaller, more manageable, and often more affordable home. So the first one is less upkeep, less space to manage and maintain, which then gives you more time and freedom and perhaps energy to pursue other things that really matter to you at this stage of your life. The second one is fewer expenses. Utilities might be less, property taxes might be less, maintenance costs might be less, which would then give you more money to afford other things that you really want to be doing at this stage of your life. Maybe more travel, more experiences. Now, this certainly has a caveat because it does depend on where you move. And, you know, a lot of boomers are looking for those areas in our country that are, or in other countries, that are affordable. So I just want to make sure that I covered that it's not always less expensive, but frequently moving to a smaller home is less expensive. The third thing is you have less stuff and less stuff to manage, to care for, and that gives you more freedom, more time and energy to enjoy your life. And then another pro of downsizing is that you have less stress. You know, when you have less stuff to move around, to organize, to maintain, things that you've been holding on to that you no longer want, need, or use, that gives you a freedom. It's a sense of freedom and ease that's both mental and physical when you do let go of that stuff. So life can be easier and simpler when you downsize and when you live with less. So now some of the cons as part of this checklist, because there are certainly disadvantages to downsizing too, and it's important to consider that too if you're in the process of making a decision whether you should downsize or not. So the first one is, and this is always the hard one, you need to declutter and let go of your stuff if you're going to live in a smaller house. So all of those things that you've been collecting for years, they've been sitting in the attic, the basement, in your library, wherever they are. This is actually one of the biggest hurdles to downsizing because letting go is hard and change is hard. But then just to think about that, and it's a little bit of a pushback, is that new lifestyle, that simpler life, worth it to you to declutter, to have that simpler lifestyle? Because downsizing, actually, if you do make a decision to downsize, that might actually be the inspiration or the motivation that you needed to get moving and to actually downsize. So a second con is that you don't want to, you're afraid, you're resisting leaving the homestead where you raised your children. Maybe you like what you have, you know, it's working for you right now, and you like your neighborhood, you like your neighbors. So change is hard. There's a natural resistance on many people, for many people to say, you know, I really like it here, I don't want to move, because you're accustomed to that big house and so forth. Now, this is actually the second biggest hurdle to downsizing, saying goodbye to your homestead. But just one thing to think about is it might be good for you right now. And so if you're in your 50s, early 60s, mid 60s, no health issues at all, it's just something to think about and maybe anticipate that, okay, well, down the road, it is possible, I would need to not have stairs and so forth. So it might be good for now to stay in the big house, but what about in 5 years or 10 years? And is it worth it making that big decision right now before it's too late? So oftentimes, I hear of people, having a health issue, sudden, maybe it's a stroke or heart attack or something like that, and then they're forced to move and downsize, and then it's just much harder. And then a third con to downsizing is underestimating the costs associated with the actual downsizing move. So closing costs, higher taxes and fees, they all need to be taken into consideration. So it's all a matter of just doing a really serious financial profile on your situation and doing due diligence. And the other one that kind of is along with that is overestimating your house value. You know, we all want to believe that our house is worth so much more than it might be. So it's important to be realistic, get several estimates from reliable realtors. And then the fifth con to downsizing is not downsizing enough. So that can be pretty expensive. So it's called double downsizing, where you didn't anticipate that you needed a smaller house, 5 or 10 years from now. So you moved down a little bit. You downsized a little bit. So just think about the additional costs associated with moving and selling the house, having storage units and so forth. So not downsizing enough is something that is a real problem when people are thinking about downsizing. And then the last one is not liking where you've moved or the house that you selected, or not understanding how expensive an area might have been. So when you do your due diligence, you kind of go back to the basics and just say, this area, and find out for sure how much an area is going to be. So there's no one size that fits all when it comes to downsizing, and there's no easy way to make this big decision because it does take time. So before you jump in, weigh the pros and cons, make sure that you do your homework, and make sure that it makes financial sense and logistical sense and emotional sense for you right now. So as the downsizing designer, I have the opportunity to speak all over the country to people about my own downsizing journey and how it's impacted my life and lifestyle, that ability to live abundantly and simply with much less. So if you're trying to decide, how to, or if you should downsize, go to my website, because we have over 500 blogs and videos on downsizing, decluttering, and so forth. Take advantage of those. And also, you are welcome to sign up for a 30-minute consultation with me so that I can just kind of help you through the process. So I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.